joining us from the Atlantic region of Canada, but it could be just as easily anywhere else in the world. You get around quite a bit these days, don't you?
Mm, I do. Thank you. Thank you, Ranjan, and hello to the whole Tapasya family and to everybody online. And lovely to see you, Pip, always.
As always, as always. Well, as I knew we were going to be having our conversation today on creativity, I'm seeing my sister later on today, and we're celebrating the fact that she's just retired after 26 years working for the NHS. And instead of going out and buying her a card, I wrote her a poem and I presented it on a board, which I'll just show you now, if you can see.
Beautiful.
So I'm just saying to everyone listening, I hope you're going to be likewise inspired by Judy, because we're in for a real treat, I think. And there's a lot of ground that I would like to cover. But let me just begin. We spoke earlier in the week, Judy, and you asked me what I was doing at the moment that was creative. And I told you that I was, editing films and videos, and you went, yes. And I was writing press releases, and you went,
Mm,
yes. And then I said, oh, and I'm writing a children's book. And you went, that's it.
that's it.
That's it there. So I wonder for you, how do you define creativity? What is it that makes you go, that's it?
Mm. A great question, Philippa. When I asked you that question, I could tell by the quality of energy. So you said, I'm writing press releases, I'm editing film, and it was like business as usual kind of energy. And then you said, oh, and I'm writing a children's book. And there was this sparkle of delight energy that came out of you when you said it. Honestly, for me, I think creativity is just it's a natural expression of the energy of the soul. Full stop.
Excuse me, Sister.
Always.
Excuse me, Sister Judy and Sister Philippa. Sister who is doing translation in Spanish, she is requesting that if Sister Philippa can speak little slowly,
Slow,
yeah,
more
so that
slowly.
we can
Yeah.
translate. So thank
I'm
you.
just so excited to be seeing Judy, but I will do my best to slow down. Thank you for that.
So I think I just think it's a natural expression of energy of the soul. And when it's being expressed, there is a natural feeling of delight and joy and happiness. And that's what I felt in your voice when you got to that last creation. Everything else was a creation, but that last one had something special in it. So that's what lit me up and made me think about how joyful I am when I'm creating. And yet we're creating all the time. So it has to be something to do with the quality of my energy when I'm creating, which is, I think, the link to purity that we can make today,
Mhm.
because we're always creating as souls. I'm creating thoughts, so many of them in every moment. I'm creating actions. I'm creating a life. I'm creating words to speak. I'm constantly creating. So, by definition, the soul is a generator, a creator of everything in my life. But I think when we get to talk about purity and creativity, that's where it gets interesting.
Mhm. Well, we'll come on to that in just a moment. I liked what you said about connecting to an inner joy.
Mm,
And especially in the Western world, we live with quite a strong work ethic that it's good
mm,
to work. And creativity is somehow seen as play and therefore less worthwhile. And maybe as we grow older, we tell ourselves that we're not very good anyway at drawing, painting, playing a musical instrument. And so we shy away from it. But what you're saying is that if we can pursue some form of creativity, that will connect us back to our inner joy, which is one of our core soul values in a way.
mhm. I think that creativity is less about the product and more about the expression. So I think where things got complicated for us, if you look at children, they're naturally creative. There was a teacher the other day showing pictures of an assignment she does every week. She has a picture of something recognizable, hand drawn, but say a camera. She cuts it in half, and the activity is, I am not a camera, I am dot, dot, dot. And the children have to complete the other side of the picture. Rocket ships, swimming pools, they do all kinds of things. It's just natural for them to think outside of the confined box. It's another definition for creativity in a way. But I find that because as adults, what happens is we connect our creativity to a product. We're trying to create something rather than being in touch with the pure joy of expression. You know, you're doing it because it's fun, because it feels good. And oh, that may end up being, if your intention is to create something beneficial, it will bring benefit somewhere, somehow, some way. If your intention is to monetize, you'll be blocked because there's less purity in the monetization than there is in the expression for just for sheer expression, one, or two, for bringing benefit.
Mm-hmm. So maybe one of the little tips we could pass on is in a way by connecting with our inner child, we can more easily access that little reservoir of creativity within us. But a lot of what you just said could just as easily apply to spirituality, connecting with our inner joy, expressing that impulse. Are you able to differentiate at all between creativity and spirituality in your mind?
I think, if creativity is the natural expression of the energy of the soul, then it is spirituality. But on our journey of spirituality, we're returning to that creative expression. Let's say, we're reclaiming the purity of that. So I may create many things in a day, but I know when I look at my mind, many of the thoughts that I have created in the day have been influenced by something other than my innate spirituality, my innate, pure essence of being. So in a way, I'm kind of cleansing, I'm removing the blocks to that natural expression of my own innocence, my own purity, my own playfulness. Like, I know for me as an adult, I was so happy when I met the BKs and discovered that I could bring my imagination with me. I have a very active imagination, which helps create, books and writing and things. But I thought in the previous meditations I had attempted that I had to empty my mind, that I couldn't think anymore. And so it was just a delight to discover, no, no, no. You bring your imagination with you, but let's just purify it. Let's clean it up a bit. Let's remove those influences that make your creativity a bit heavy or cumbersome or maybe a bit sluggish. Let's just let it flow freely. I find since I've been meditating that it flows so much more freely, the creative expression, the natural energy of the soul. There's no self-doubt. I'm not editing, critiquing, I'm just expressing. And then later might look at it and say, oh, that's lovely. Oh, and maybe I'd change this. It almost feels like it's not mine, the editor, critic, adult. So if you want to say inner child, that's fine. But for me, I think more it's just from my core. It's just from the pure inner space of the soul where this beautiful stuff comes out. And even I'm surprised.
I mean, you are one of the most creative people I know, it has to be said. You write books, you do podcasts, you do um, so many programs that your creative imagination conjures up. And the thing I admire about you is that you don't just have the idea, but you get on and do it, almost within the same moment that the idea came to you. And a lot of people listening may feel, well, Judy is just a creative person. She's a creative type. That's her thing. Could you share with us a little bit about your creative journey? Were you always like that? Did you ever suppress it at any point in your life? And how did it change when you did start learning to meditate? Because you hinted that the spirituality and creativity came together at that moment. How has it been for you over the years?
I would not say I was always creative, actually. I was a troubled teenager and I wrote things that were painful and depressing, which is how I felt inside. So the communicativeness, always, expressing was very much part of me, for sure. I didn't really have anyone to express it to, so I wrote it down, um, and I don't think it wasn't lovely, but it was the way to get it out of me. It was like maybe therapy, just to get it out. Um, so I would not have, I was more rebellious, angry, sad, hurt. And I think when I had kids and they were very young, um, I discovered this playfulness. I discovered I was really good at telling a story that went on for 2 days about, a blueberry fairy in a forest, and I could just add and add, and then we would add something else because young children don't care where it goes. It can go the most fanciful places, and it's fine. And I think it freed something in me. Now, I began to meditate when the youngest was 1 year old and the oldest was 3 or 4. So it was very like being a mom and being with these young children was very closely intertwined with my creative journey. And the first book I wrote was with them when they were young girls. And we finished reading Harry Potter and we needed something else to read. So we decided to write our own book. And we left it for 10 years until they were teenagers and came back to it, which I'm glad we did because then it was much better. It's a much higher quality novel, this Seven Secrets of the Universe. So I think from the time I was meditating and exposed to young children, I was becoming a child again. I was rediscovering my own innocence and I had playmates. I had co-creators. And since then, I have found many co-creators inside the meditation community, others who love to co-create. And I feel like I'm happy to explore beyond the boundaries of rigid thinking. And I think the opposite of creativity maybe is to get stuck in a rigid way of thinking. We expect the world to look a certain way because I've always experienced it that way. And so the expectations kind of kill creativity. And so to be with people who are ready to explore something a bit different, I love puns. I'm not good at it, but people who make puns, they're always finding a different angle. Humor is always finding a different way to look at a situation. I really appreciate people who are funny that way. It's not my talent, but I really appreciate it because, again, it's another way of looking at maybe the same situation, but with fresh eyes. So there's a freshness that creativity brings. And you, I mean, Philippa, you're amazing. You're one of the people who inspires me most in the written and spoken. You can just open your mouth and speak beautiful words. And you might be speaking about the same situation someone else has just told me about, but your version of it is much more lovely, because you have the words, but you also have the vision, the way you're looking at it. And I think meditation has helped a lot with that, just to see things differently than how everyone else sees them, or than how my rigid way of seeing used to see them.
It is a real overlap, isn't it? The vision that we have, because artistic, creative people can look at the world and they just see it in a new way. They see the way the light catches the leaves on a tree or lights up a hillside or whatever, and we don't notice it, but they do. And it's the same in meditation. When you begin to kind of cleanse the soul, it's like the dust starts to wash away and you begin to see the world again with fresh eyes. And so maybe that's another overlap. We're talking there about vision and cleansing. Let's come on now to purity and what you feel that exploring this territory of purity, which is what we're doing in this series, what does that bring to our creative journey? How does it alter that?
Well, I think, seeing how creative children are is kind of the best case study or the best proof of how creativity and purity go together, because they're so pure, right? And they're just exploring and they're expressing. They see something, they give shape or size to it, color to it. I remember as a mother learning very early that when one of the daughters would draw something and it was wild and wonderful and didn't look anything like reality, a purple tree, the red mother, whatever. And I learned very early, instead of saying, "Oh, that's a beautiful picture," I would say to her, "Oh, tell me about this purple tree." And then the story would unfold about this tree. And it just seemed to be free flowing out of her. Like, I don't even think she knew the whole story. She just had the image. But when asked, it came out. And I feel like that's when we tap into our own, when we go beneath the surface layers of all of our old thinking, which is what meditation allows us to do, to just sit in the open space within myself and feel that pure core of the self. And from there, it's like bubbling up from underground as a fresh spring of water, and it's very it's nourishing and it's interesting, but it's fresh and it's clean and there's always something new. And so I think the methodology that purity offers or allows us, I guess, is to, one, know that there is a pure core to the being. Two, to know how to get there. It's not through thinking, it's not through analyzing, it's not through constructing. Constructing is different than creating. It's through simply sitting in silence and withdrawing my attention so deeply inside myself that I've gone beneath the strata of all my conditioned, rigid thinking. And I find myself in this pure inner space. And then I can trust almost anything that emerges in that space will have freshness in it and will therefore be new, creative, different than my old. I might write it down. I might have it as an image, and drawing is not my thing. So I wouldn't draw. I would tend to write, or I might speak it to try and describe what had come to me. But I think the source of creativity is purity then. And I think how purity changes the game is this way. One, the source of creativity is. Two, the methodology. And three, I think, is the intention. I went to a wonderful exhibit in London recently when I was there at the Tate Modern. And I think it was considered conceptual art, which means it's supposed to make me think. I think. I don't know enough about art, but I looked at this huge display for a very long time, trying to understand what was this about. And I knew it was art, and I knew it was very creative, but it left a very kind of sick feeling in my stomach. And I did understand it, and I thought the message was clever and quite meaningful, but I felt sick when I left. And so I took that with me for the day. And it got me reflecting on the intention, like with purity, the intention of creativity will always be to uplift or to inspire or to bring benefit. And so I think purity influences creativity in those three ways: the source, the methodology, and the intention. And therefore, the actual, I hate to say product, but the expression is therefore quite different, quite novel.
No, I can really see how when you're trying to be clever with your art and using your head and conceptual ideas, you're bypassing that beautiful, pure innocence of the spirit. And I love your insight that children are so creative because they're naturally more in touch with their inner purity. I think that's really genius. And we've talked about the child and connecting to the child, but the opposite of that is the master. And there is an aspect of creativity which is about becoming master creators, that we have the ability to create not only ourselves and our lives, but the world around us through the power of our vision and the power of our creativity. To what extent do you think we fully understand that and embrace it and use it? Or are we more comfortable playing small and not looking at the enormity of our creative potential?
Well, I think you just gave the answer. um, I mean, we're on a journey, all of us. We're embracing, this awareness that, oh my gosh, every drop of energy I put out into the world is creating something. It's like a paint color that I just splashed onto the world. And was that a beautiful color that created an atmosphere around me that is beautiful, like that is consistent with the new world I say I want to create? No, it's not all the time. Of course not. But I am rediscovering this. I think probably us meditators will be the most surprised when the penny drops that, oh my gosh, we really are creating like every minute, every day, this world that we live in. But when you go inside a Brahma Kumaris meditation center, I was in Tapasya. I can see Ranjan sitting there with these beautiful colors behind her. It is such a beautiful place physically, but atmosphere. The atmosphere in there is beautiful. And when you come into any BK center, you can tell something different has been created here. And if you ask people to itemize, they'll say, "Oh, it's clean, it's not cluttered." They'll look for physical descriptors, but then it will always end up being the way it feels, the atmosphere. So I think I'm reclaiming this awareness that I do have this much power to create actually anything that is a pure intention, not anything I want. Like, I was told early, by the New Age spirituality movement, you can create anything you want. You get that car by just putting a thought into it. And I thought, well, okay, maybe, but what about the karma? There's many other obstacles to manifesting what you want. But in terms of, am the master of everything in my life because I created it. But back when I created it in the past, I didn't know I was a master then. And so I created things that had less beautiful energy in it, and I have to live with the consequences. So I'm also now a master of how I respond to what comes up in my life, what comes up inside of me. And the master to me means the one who chooses. So I might choose a brush stroke. If I'm enough of a master in my creative art, I choose words very carefully when I write, and I rewrite until just the right word is there. That's the mastery, right? You start with an impulse, a creative impulse, but then you refine. And you refine again and you refine again. So I feel that we're doing that in our lives. We're doing that with our thoughts. We're doing that, we're becoming more masterful in what we create. But I don't think fully 100% I have accepted the reality that I am a master of my creation. I get it intellectually, but enough of my day is spent just under the radar of that consciousness that I'm not always in that awareness. But
And
I
to,
think
to
it's
what
a
yeah,
wonderful thing.
yeah, yeah. To what extent are you aware of the fact that you are a conduit, the vehicle through which the divine impulse can create? In other words, your inspiration, your ideas to do something, the impulse to be that joyful being. To what extent are you aware that that is an impulse that is coming from beyond our physical world, from whatever realm you conceptualize, but it's coming from a source other than yourself? How aware are you of that?
I think that's a good question, Philippa, because earlier you remarked that I'm somebody who has the idea, but then implements. That's how I know it's divinely inspired. So there was a time where I tried to be creative before coming here. I tried to write before meditating, and it was laborious and it was painful. And I got a little obsessed with it, and I got frenetic, like there was a manic. Lots of energy, creative energy, and bursting at the seams to get it out. And I know many artists who speak about this. They have more ideas than they can bring into fruition, that they can manifest, right? And I don't find that at all now. If something comes in silence or in a moment, of internal focused, it always comes with the energy to fulfill it, to make it happen. So I never feel like I've got this big to-do list of things I want to create and I'm never getting to them. I never have that feeling. There's like one thing, and then it takes me 10 minutes to maybe record something or to write something. It's tucked away. I know it'll get used, or it goes into the funnel where it will be published or put somewhere. So I'm not backed up with all these ideas the way I hear artists describe. And for me, that to me is the proof that it's not really, it's touching something pure in me, but it's not fueled by my energy. It's got the pure energy in it to manifest, to come into being without stress or pressure or pushiness or any of this frenetic energy. So it's a flow through. It really feels like a flow through. And I think what I've learned, and this is maybe mastery, what I've learned over time is to trust the process. If I'm meant to be creating something and it's just not coming, it's not clear, I don't push it, but I make extra time to sit in silence. I make extra time to go for a walk. I make extra time to maybe just sit and imagine a scenario that could be and play with it. And in doing those things, something always comes. So I trust that process. If I'm pushing in any way, I know it's not time. I'm not ready. The pure idea has not landed yet. It's not come. The seed is not there for me to then, it's not been planted for me to grow and harvest and cultivate. I'm more like the cultivator than the creator, is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's lovely to have that sense of creativity coming through you rather than from you, because it enables you to not have ego about whatever is created or have attachment to it. And if someone doesn't like the idea, it's like, okay, I was only the instrument to voice that idea. It's fine. And I like the idea that you can put yourself in situations, either in nature or whatever works for you, where you're more likely to receive that. And I wonder how it happens for you, because I often find if I go to sleep with an idea, say I'm trying to write a voiceover for a promo, and I haven't quite got the seed of the idea, and I go to sleep with it, I often find that moment between coming out of sleep and into consciousness, there's a split second where I'm sort of between worlds, and very often things will just, it's like when you suddenly get internet connection and all the emails download all of a sudden. It's a bit like that feeling. It just comes in a whoosh. And I have to write it down very quickly because it felt like it didn't come from my intellect. Do you have moments like that?
I do. And like you, between waking and the end of the early morning meditation, something will come. And it could be when I'm brushing my teeth, or it's in that sort of liminal stage, that early morning stage, where something comes, and usually it comes as a feeling and a full experience. So there might be a picture associated, but it's a knowingness, and I don't usually have to write it down because it's complete. It's complete. And I know after that morning meditation, I will write it down and I'll cultivate. The seed will be planted, and then I just need to describe that seed that I saw. But there are moments throughout the day where things come, and as the memory fades with age, I am finding myself going to the cell phone quite a bit to type that down quickly before I forget. And I'm glad I do, because when I look at those notes later, some of them, yeah, no, that doesn't seem relevant now. And I can tell I had a great idea. And it's not so great 4 hours later. Or those ones, usually the ones that aren't coming from me, I can remember.
Because they have an impact.
Yeah.
In the introduction today, it was mentioned about 100 Women of Spirit project. And that was an example of this. I was wondering how to honor Daddy Janki's 100th birthday and what to do. And the phrase 100 Women of Spirit, 100 Women of Spirit just literally landed fully formed in my head. In the same way I heard, not that I'm comparing myself, but J.K. Rowling talked about Harry Potter just appearing in front of her fully formed as a character. And it is amazingly intoxicating when you feel that you're really in line with that creative flow. And it's one of the most alive feelings that I know, and it can be exhilarating. And it takes you to a space beyond your normal everyday, which is a beautiful place to hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that writing 7 Secrets of the Universe. So I would write the first draft, and then the girls would X out 50% of it and rewrite it. So the two daughters. But I would be the conceptualizer, because it's the 7 Secrets of Raj Yoga, but told for a young adult audience as a story. And I would walk up the street in the winter, trudging through the snow with my little backpack and laptop on my back to go to the public library, where I would sit and type, to be away from distractions in the environment here. And on my way up the street, walking, slogging through the snow, a full picture scenario would just come into my mind. And then I'd get to the library and I would type and type and type. I'll never forget the chapter on time. This hourglass image came into my mind, and the kids, the 4 teenagers, being trapped in the hourglass. And they're trying to figure out, they don't even know it's an hourglass. They just see the walls. And I mean, it was wildly imaginative. I didn't make that up. It just came in as a full picture, and then I typed all the details of that particular scenario for the chapter on time in that novel. Anyways, yes, it's a wonderful, it's playful. It's playful.
Yeah. That they found themselves literally inside time. Very, very creative. Now, there's a question which I kind of feel myself almost shying away from, but I do feel it's relevant in today's world. In the days before sat-nav, people were fantastic at using maps and navigating their way by holding a physical piece of paper. That skill is now being lost as people just put in the destination, put in the zip code, and it just takes them there. And youngsters today struggle to use a map. I wonder to what extent you're concerned that the same might happen with creativity, because, you know, the AI, the chat GPT can write you a poem, write you a story, do you a drawing, do pretty much anything, and better than any of us can ever do. How concerned are you that as human beings, we're going to slowly lose that ability to engage with the creative impulse because the technology is doing it for us? Is that true? Is that a reality, do you think?
I'm working on another book right now, and it's with a group. There's 4 of us writing this book, and it's about dying. And we did an experiment. We took our first draft and we put it through an AI editor, just as an editor. Could you just edit this? And what we got back was so sterile. It was so well written. It was words I could not have put together in that structure. They were essence-full, they were elegant. It was stunning, and it was completely sterile. And so we did it again, and we said, could you add more words? Like, just, not so condensed, do it a little bit bigger. And it came back and it was okay, but it's still. And so we thought, well, why would we do that? We'd much rather have, the energy of us, the feeling, the energy coming through us into the book. So we left it aside. I have a feeling after this initial honeymoon phase where everybody's using it to make songs, and I think there will be a moment, because if in fact creativity is the expression of the energy of the soul, then I'm still going to want to express that. Nobody else can do that for me. So I might use AI to make a better report, or even to create one if I'm not terribly invested in it. I have to write a proposal for something. But for me to express myself, I'm still going to have to do it. It won't be satisfying for us. I think we'll find it quite dry, as I'm already finding many of these creations quite dry. And I know many others are too. So I'm not worried. I think the human desire to create will always be there because it's a natural expression of who we are. We could go down the path of all the difficulties it will create, but I'm not going to go there. I will still be wanting to express something from inside, and I'm still going to want to connect with the divine, and together some kind of co-creation, be an instrument for that, because it's just so joyful. So yes, we'll use it for some things, but it cannot replace human creativity.
And that's one thing that as human beings we can do that the AI technology can't, and that is draw inspiration from the divine. That's a uniquely human experience which can't be taken away from us.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can draw inspiration from each other, whereas AI can only summarize what others have said and put it together.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas we can go off track, and we can go outside the box and have wildly imaginative things and be inspired by each other. And then it changes me and it changes you. AI doesn't do that.
Interesting. If you're listening to this and you have got a question for Judy about your own creativity or how to cultivate it, do write your question in the chat box. But I'm wondering, Judy, if someone is living a life that is quite routined, with going to work, following a timetable, following codes of conduct, feeling that they have to operate within certain parameters, and that maybe those around them are not necessarily looking to them for creativity or being in touch with their creativity, and the feeling of being a bit dry or sterile, or the routine of monotony starting to kill some kind of little impulse that is there inside. What would you advise someone to either light the flame, or just keep the flame going, or fan that flame? How can we awaken that if it really doesn't feel like it's there for us at the moment?
That can happen, can't it, for all of us? We get routinized. Even those of us that are very creative, we get routinized. So for me, I can say there are waves of creativity. You and I talked the other day about a moment in our lives now where we're both feeling something shifted inside. And whatever was sort of eclipsing or blocking a certain flow of energy, it's removed, it's gone. And there's a lot of creative energy coming through us. So I think routine, rigidity is one part of it, but I also think internally there are blocks that on this journey are being dissolved, are being shifted. The energy in me is moving around, and I can be blocked inside myself without any external routine. So yes, we routinize ourselves, we get trapped in our own little blockages, and maybe we say we're living a life that externally is routinized, or there isn't a lot of support for creativity. But I think the world is thirsty for creativity. So when something, a pure impulse, is expressed in something beneficial for others, it's always, what I have seen is it's always beneficial. It's always used in some way, maybe not in the moment you present it, and definitely not if there's attachment to it or ego in it. But we live in the meditative life that we live. There's a lot of room for internal creativity. I mean, using our imaginations in morning meditation, using our imaginations anytime we sit, using our imaginations as we're writing, to the divine, a letter to the divine, a letter from the divine. There's so many ways in which we can inspire ourselves creatively, and that we can nurture this inner creativity, paint or color or do any of those things. There's been a wave through our organization of mandala coloring and all kinds of things. We're opening, I think, the doors to a lot of newness in the way we approach our learning. But if learning is rote and our habit is rote, then yeah, maybe now the time is for a little creativity. I mean, I have the fortune of being able to travel around the world, and that's why I was in Dallas in that beautiful retreat center, was to do an experiential learning where we were being much more creative about the way we approach our own learning, and even how we share this knowledge with new ones who come to the center. So there are lots of opportunities.
And you also facilitated a whole retreat on creativity in Germany. Was that last year or the year before, maybe? But that's another beautiful way in which spirituality is showing up in the spiritual community, and it's being validated as being a worthy way to express what is going on inside of you. And that's beautiful.
Yeah, we always need a new song, a new piece of music, a new beautiful poster or art. I mean, new blessing cards. Yes, there's lots of opportunity.
And what would you say to someone who said, look, I'm just not a creative person. I'm more of a scientific type. I'm no good at it. It's not for me. What are they missing out by not inquiring in this way?
Well, I mean, I think science is very creative. You have to formulate a hypothesis, which is pure imagination, and then see if it's true. That's basically the scientific methodology. So I would argue that they are being creative. I don't think it's an either or. You can express creativity in many mediums. You can express it academically, scientifically, through coloring, drawing, painting, walking, running, anything we do. So yeah, I'm not gonna suggest that they're missing something. I'm going to suggest they look a little more closely at themselves and see the ways in which they are using their own energy creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they go home and cook. who knows where the creativity is in their life. But I don't know. I have a feeling we're not fully living unless in some ways we're expressing our core energy by creating. Just the act of creating is satisfying and life-giving, life-sustaining. So my guess is it's being done somewhere somehow, but maybe not named that way.
Mm-hmm. And in a way, maybe our kind of take-home message from this is at the end of the day, what we're doing is creating energy through our thought, and that energy is being expressed in a myriad number of different ways, but everyone is connected to their own energy sphere and to creating an energy field around themselves, and that is creativity, whether you see it that way or not.
Yeah, it's not picture painting. Yes, nice summary.
Yeah. Wow. So what other creative projects have you got on the go other than this book that you're writing with your friends? Is there anything else that you can let us into a preview of?
That I think that's the big one right now. Multiple mini projects, but that's the big one. It's the fun one. It's coming to almost be ready to be shared. So that's a wonderful period to be in, have had some ideas, have talked about them, have sat quietly, have gone down pathways that didn't seem like they were very good, and then gone, forget that, come back to purity, start again. So we're at the end of a 1.5-year journey, and it's wonderful.
Wow.
It's a nice place to be at. Yeah.
It really, really sounds it. Well, we've talked about creating an energy and connecting to our own inner energy, and maybe that's what we should do right now with the time that we have left. If you could guide us into a creative visualization that will speak to that creativity within us, that would be great. Judy, thank you so much.
Sister Philippa, we have a question from the audience.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking from my heart, because as you both were going through the question answer, it was feeling like somebody narrating my entire life, the way I see, because I'm big fan of creator, starting from same story. Like, I used to be very introvert, but in a different meaning, and somehow when Baba came in my life, I introduced to kid, I start playing with the kid, and that's where the eye opens of creativity for me too. The same way as the sister was saying, and I spent a lot of time with kids, and that's where the journey started, opening eyes, opening towards the creativity, how I can create, where it is painting the entire molly every day, or while taking a bath, something sudden in the morning comes and I wake up and write something. And that journey is continuing still. And as you were going through question answer, I was also actually asking, okay, now maybe it is a telepathy, whatever you can say, because I was saying you will now talk about this and you are talking about that. So it is entire life I have spent it in front of me. Now the question which I have is, as a soul, which I feel, soul is a seeker of newness. And is that the newness is the basic for the creativity as well? Of course, purity gives the joy, filling the colors, so many things. But that newness, which I am seeking, is that which is allowing me to open the door and create what I want?
Isn't that lovely that you're hearing your own story through what I'm telling? So that might be true for others as well. Thank you for sharing that. I think, when we come to the spiritual path, we discover that the newness we were looking for couldn't be found in that new pair of shoes or that new house or the new job or the new partner or the new whatever, that it ends up being inside of us, the newness. So it takes us right back to, we're looking for newness because it's another word for fresh. It's another word for pure. And so coming back to that place inside ourselves is actually where we discover the most newness. Like, I'm new. There's a new energy flowing through me, and that's exhilarating. And then that's what helps me create. So yes, we are looking for newness, and I think it's another word for purity. We're looking for our own pure state.
We're
Thank you,
rewriting
sister.
our own story. Yeah, thanks. I think that was Brother Jyoti speaking. Lovely question. And it actually inspired, if I can sneak in another question of my own at this point. What we haven't spoken about at all is the creating of a new world through the energy that we are creating. It's almost like the thought of the new world is there, and then everyone inputs their own creativity, and we together make that a reality. And that new world is nothing if not a world of creativity. What else is there? It's creating happiness and joy and just moments of, whether it's painting, whether it's walking, whether it's music. It's a world of creativity that we're moving towards. And so, of course, connecting with our own creativity is going to connect us to that vibration of the new world. And that will make us joyful. Of course it will.
One more thing I just wanted to share, because last portion of the conversation was going through GPT part. I work on GPT. One thing I agree what sister says, GPT is something which is technology representation of what human brain has speak out. But human brain has not speak out everything. A human brain or creativity is endless. There is no boundary to it. GPT cannot cover it. So for sure, GPT is very small portion of creativity, let's say that way. That's what I experienced too.
Really lovely points. And it's so lovely to hear from someone at Tapasya Dam. I think that's a really a fantastic addition to these sessions, is to have live audience participation. So congratulations for that beautiful idea. That's creativity. That's creativity.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sisters. I have a quick question. My name is Ram, and thanks for wonderful knowledge. My question is, can creativity be taught, or is it an individual journey?
I think it's like, we say values are caught, not taught. I think the same with creativity. We can catch sort of signals that bring us back to our own creativity. Take a painting class. Every time I've taken a class, I feel like I am not doing it as good as the instructor showed us. So classes don't work for me, like teaching me, but when I'm on the journey to express something, I will learn very quickly the methods I require in order to express it. So I can learn publishing, I can learn layout, I can learn all kinds of things because I really want to express this creative book, say, for instance, as an example. So can it be taught? I think even like meditation, can you teach peace? I think pieces within you can guide somebody back to it, and then they discover it and they use it themselves. You can learn the tools that you could use for your creative expression, for sure. But not sure creativity is something that's caught. I think it's creating an atmosphere in which it can be caught. And for me, that's safe places to explore and experiment.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Interesting. If you look at the origins of the word education, it comes from a word, educare, I think, that means to draw out. So this idea that you're not superimposing knowledge, but you're drawing out what is innately already within you. And I think it's the same with creativity. It's creating the circumstances that remove the blockages to enable what is in you to be drawn out. And, sometimes that does need the right atmosphere, the right support, or even just the right challenge, like Judy challenged me on what was I being creative with. So yeah, I think there are situations that will encourage it, and being surrounded by really creative materials or creative people will draw that out of you. So there are practical little things like that that you can do. Great questions. Thank you, Brother Ram. Well, I hope everyone is feeling inspired to do something in whatever form their creativity takes. I am very fond of a book called The Artist's Way, which is for writers. And the tip there is to just write 4 sides of A4 every single morning. Doesn't matter if it's just a nursery rhyme or a shopping list, but just to write. And there is something about the doing of a particular creative task that enables more to develop, more to come after that. So that's, maybe another little thing that you could try is just writing 4 pages every day, and eventually it will start to come out. So many lovely ideas like that. Why? Right. Well, should we look at our creative inner world? And Judy, if you could just take us into that, just to close our time today, which has been truly inspirational. Thank you so much.
So why don't we all know how to go inside. So why don't we just take a deep breath first and ground the body, settle the energies of the body. You've been sitting for a while, but your thoughts have carried you away from your body. So come back to your body and just check in with the body with a deep breath. And it's good to start from a grounded place, right here in the present moment. And then just bring your awareness behind your eyes, where the soul resides in this body. And I'll invite you to imagine a beautiful big room, a clear, open space of a room with white walls in a circle around you. And they're white from the floor to the ceiling, and actually they're a dome, so the whole ceiling is white as well. And in this space, I'd like you to stand in the middle of that room and just look around 360 degrees and look up. And I'd like you to close your eyes in that room and just touch a pure space inside yourself. Like a spring of pure energy, and let it flow into your mind and then out of your mind like paint colors. I'd like you just to throw paint, almost like at Holi when we throw things. Just throw color at the walls of the room in your head. So it's not organized and analytical. It's free flowing, creative, completely unfettered. And just throw color around the wall. Now, what colors are you throwing? Just notice what colors are going up. Are they taking any natural shape? Let them be the colors of joy. And now the color of peace. And now the color of love. Color of sweetness. And the color of courage. Just to name a few of our abundant qualities. And just look at your room. What color have you given to these different qualities? Peace, joy, love, courage, sweetness. I'd like you to sit now in this room, in your head, this beautiful room that is now colored. And I would like you to invite the divine to sit with you in this room. Just imagine a beacon of light shining down into this room. And just feel the presence of the divine with you in this room, shining a light on all of these colors. And turn slowly so you see 360 degrees, the beauty you have put onto the walls of this room, as if you're showing it to God. And God is seeing it like a parent looking at a child's drawing. And instead of saying, oh, that's a nice painting, child, God is saying, tell me about this. And what would you say back to God? What would you tell God about each of those colors? Just take a moment with that in your own mind. And now God shines his light on all 360 degrees of that room. And you feel like a gentle smile from God. And you feel inside a quiet satisfaction that your creative expression has been divinized with God's pure light. And you wrap this experience up in beautiful wrapping paper and pull it inside yourself as a gift from God to you, from you to God. And as you open your eyes, keep that sweet smile of the happy creative child on your lips and in your mind as you go about your day. Om Shanti.